Maria Reeves woke strapped to a cold gurney in a sterile white room, the hum of fluorescent lights drilling into her ears. A man in a pristine lab coat entered, his smile unsettling. "Good morning, Maria. You're home," Dr. Ashcroft said. Maria's heart raced as she realized the nightmare had just begun. Time seemed to stretch endlessly. Shadows danced in the corners, adding to her dread. Her hands trembled uncontrollably. Maria's last memory was her car breaking down on a deserted road. She remembered the cold wind howling through the trees, the eerie silence that followed, and the feeling of isolation that crept over her. The headlights flickered, casting long shadows that danced on the asphalt. She tried to call for help, but her phone had no signal. Panic set in as she realized she was completely alone. Now, she was told she'd been a patient here for years. The sterile smell of the hospital, the white walls, and the distant sounds of other patients filled her senses. She couldn't remember how she got here or why she was here. The doctors and nurses spoke to her as if she should know them, but their faces were unfamiliar. Files showed photos of her in a hospital gown, labeled with violent outbursts and delusions. The notes detailed incidents she couldn't recall, moments of rage and confusion that seemed foreign to her. She saw images of herself restrained, eyes wild with fear, but they felt like they belonged to someone else. But it didn't feel real. The memories she had, the life she remembered, was so different from what these files depicted. She remembered a family, friends, a job she loved. None of it matched the person in the files. The disconnect was jarring, leaving her in a constant state of doubt. She questioned everything, wondering if her memories were real or fabricated. Each day felt like a battle between the reality presented to her and the life she remembered. She stared at her reflection, searching for any sign of the person she once was. The ticking clock in the corner of the room was a constant reminder of the time slipping away, and with it, her sense of self. The asylum was a labyrinth of flickering lights and eerie whispers. Each corner seemed to hold a secret, each shadow a story untold. The air was thick with a sense of dread, as if the walls themselves were alive, watching, waiting. The whispers were not just sounds, but felt like the very breath of the building, echoing through the empty halls. The patients were husks, shuffling or mumbling. Their eyes were vacant, their movements mechanical, as if they were mere puppets on strings. They seemed to be trapped in their own minds, lost in a world of shadows and echoes. The mumbling was a constant drone, a background noise that added to the eerie atmosphere of the place. One woman, Evelyn, warned her. Evelyn was different. Her eyes still held a spark of life, a glimmer of hope. She seemed to know more than the others, her whispers carrying a weight of urgency and fear. "Evelyn, you must leave before they take you to the basement." Her voice trembled as she spoke, her eyes darting around as if she feared being overheard. The basement was a place of nightmares, a place where people went and never returned. Later, Evelyn disappeared like the others, her bed stripped bare. It was as if she had never existed, her presence erased from the asylum. The empty bed stood as a silent testament to her fate, a chilling reminder of the dangers lurking within the walls. The basement held secrets, darker than anyone could imagine. It was a place of unspeakable horrors, where the air was thick with the scent of decay and despair. The shadows seemed to move on their own, whispering secrets that were better left unheard. Hidden documents revealed the asylum's dark past. They told stories of experiments gone wrong, of patients used as guinea pigs in twisted medical trials. The files were old and dusty, but the horrors they contained were still fresh, still capable of sending shivers down the spine. Maria began finding thin scars on her body, but Dr. Ashcroft dismissed her fears. Memory is fragile. Sometimes we erase what we can't bear to keep, he said. The scars multiplied, each one a silent testament to a night she couldn't remember. One night, Maria found a note Evelyn had hidden for her. The note read, "The walls remember." Maria felt a chill run down her spine as she realized the significance of Evelyn's message. She knew she had to uncover the asylum's secrets. Determined, Maria found a hidden stairwell leading to the basement. She had been searching for answers for weeks, following cryptic clues and mysterious messages that led her to this very moment. The air was thick with anticipation as she descended the creaky wooden steps, each one echoing ominously in the confined space. At the bottom was a laboratory filled with glowing tanks. The eerie light cast long shadows on the walls, creating an unsettling atmosphere. Maria's heart pounded as she took in the sight of the strange equipment and the faint hum of machinery that filled the room. Inside them floated bodies, one of which looked exactly like her. She stepped closer, her breath catching in her throat as she realized the implications. These were not just any bodies, they were clones, replicas of herself. The realization sent a shiver down her spine. "Dr. Ashcroft, VO, you're not Maria." The voice was cold and detached, echoing through the lab. Maria spun around, searching for the source, but saw only shadows. The voice continued, each word like a dagger to her heart. "You're a construct, pieced together from fragments of memory." Images flashed through Maria's mind, memories that felt both familiar and foreign. She saw herself in different places, with different people, but none of it felt real. It was as if her entire existence had been fabricated. "The real Maria is long gone." The words hit her like a punch to the gut. She staggered back, her mind reeling. If she wasn't Maria, then who was she? And what had happened to the real Maria? The sense of loss and confusion was overwhelming. Horrified, Maria shattered the tanks, her anger and fear fueling her actions. Glass and liquid splattered everywhere, the clones inside dissolving into nothingness. She couldn't bear the thought of these abominations existing. Alarms blared as bodies dissolved into ash. The lab was thrown into chaos, red emergency lights flashing and sirens wailing. Maria knew she had to get out before it was too late. She fled, the truth echoing in her mind. As she ran through the dark corridors, the weight of her discovery pressed down on her. She wasn't Maria, but she was determined to find out who she really was, and what had happened to the woman she thought she had been. Bursting through the final door, Maria emerged into the daylight. The fresh air filled her lungs, a stark contrast to the oppressive atmosphere of the lab. She was free, but her journey for the truth had only just begun. Standing at the edge of the forest, Maria looked out at the horizon. The journey ahead was uncertain, but she was resolute. She would uncover the truth, no matter the cost. She fled through the burning asylum, gasping for freedom. The flames roared around her, but she pushed on. Just as she thought she was free, she found herself back in her hospital bed, the nightmare far from over. Ashcroft loomed over her. "Let's begin again," he suggested. In the mirror across the room, Maria's reflection moved on its own. Maria's reflection said with a grin, "You'll never leave." The lights flickered, and the world went black. Maria woke up in a cold sweat, gasping for air. The room was eerily silent. She glanced at the mirror, her reflection smirking back. The reflection laughed, a sinister echo filling the room. If you like this story, please watch this one.